If she starts saying things like this, be prepared, because the truth might be uncomfortable. Some points are especially difficult to accept, and others are so strange that even behavioral experts sometimes struggle to explain them. That's why it's important to look at the whole pattern. There are recurring scenarios that many people ignore until it becomes too late. To be clear, this isn't about paranoia or destroying relationships. It's about clarity and behavioral patterns supported by real psychological observations. If you're paying attention to this topic, it probably means there are already some doubts inside you, and sometimes a few minutes of reflection can reveal what takes others years to understand. One of the most common phrases is, "I need to be alone." In general, this is completely normal because everyone needs personal space from time to time. The concerning moment appears when it happens suddenly and without explanation. Sometimes it isn't just about needing rest, but about wanting to do things outside your field of view. This becomes more noticeable as she starts disappearing more often, spending more time on her phone, or changing her usual habits. It's not proof of anything on its own, but it can be the beginning of a pattern. Another phrase you might hear is, "You're too jealous." This is a powerful psychological move because the focus instantly shifts from her behavior to you. Instead of discussing the situation, the conversation turns into an accusation. You ask a question, and suddenly you become the problem simply for having doubts. But the truth is simple. If something raises questions, it's normal to ask about it. A person with nothing to hide usually explains calmly, while someone hiding something may respond with aggression or blame. Sometimes the phrase, "he's just a friend," appears. Friendship itself isn't the issue. The details are what matter. This friend might appear suddenly, having never been mentioned before, and communication with him may become secretive or unusual. Situations like this are sometimes how emotional connections outside the relationship begin. What raises concern isn't the friendship itself, but the way it starts to be hidden. You might also hear, "You're not the same as before." Often this becomes a justification. A story begins to form where you supposedly change, and therefore everything went wrong. But changes in relationships are natural. What isn't normal is using those changes as an excuse for betrayal. A mature person either works on the problem or leaves honestly instead of searching for a replacement behind someone's back. Another phrase is, "Everything is fine, just trust me." Real trust is not something that can be demanded. It has to be earned. Words like this often appear when actions already raise doubts. Instead of giving explanations, emotional pressure replaces honest communication. True trust is built on consistent actions, not just reassuring words. Sometimes the accusation becomes, "You checked my phone." Yes, that can be a violation of personal boundaries. But it's also worth asking yourself why that urge appeared in the first place. People rarely feel the need to check when everything feels calm inside. There's an important difference here. Someone with nothing to hide usually clarifies the situation calmly, while someone hiding something often shifts the focus back onto you. Another phrase is, "You're acting strange." This can sometimes be projection. When someone changes their own behavior, their partner often senses it. But instead of explanations, accusations appear. If you're being called distant, it might be worth asking who actually started pulling away. If you're being accused of being suspicious, sometimes it's important to notice who might be hiding something. The phrase, "I don't want conflict," sounds reasonable and peaceful. However, it can also be a way to shut down uncomfortable conversations. The problem doesn't disappear. It simply gets postponed. Over time, issues that aren't discussed tend to grow. Healthy relationships can handle difficult conversations, while unhealthy ones often try to avoid them. Sometimes a person says, "I'm confused." In many cases, this signals emotional distance. Often it isn't only about the relationship itself, but about choosing between you and something or someone else. The hard truth is that when someone truly wants to be with you, they usually aren't constantly lost in confusion. There's also a phrase that seems harmless, "I'm going to sleep early." On its own, it means nothing, but it can become suspicious if it happens regularly, doesn't match actual activity, and inconsistencies begin to appear. Nighttime is often when people allow themselves to do things they would normally hide during the day. Finally, there's the phrase, "I love you." This one is more complicated. Sometimes it is completely sincere, but sometimes it can also be a response to guilt. When someone fears being exposed, they may become more affectionate, attentive, and emotionally expressive. This can reduce tension and lower suspicion. Of course, not every expression of love is dishonest. But if these words suddenly appear more often exactly when your doubts grow, it may be worth thinking about. The most important question is what to do in such situations. First, don't panic. Instead of focusing on single events, pay attention to repeated patterns. One sign means very little, but several together can form a trend. It's also important to listen to your intuition, because it often notices inconsistencies before the mind can fully explain them. And when you talk about concerns, do it calmly and with facts, not accusations. There's also a truth that people rarely talk about. If you constantly feel doubt, checking and analyzing everything, even if there's no betrayal, the inner sense of peace disappears. And a relationship without peace and trust cannot truly be healthy. Sometimes the question is not only about the other person's actions, but also about why you remain in a place where you feel this way. Truth can hurt, but living in an illusion often causes far more damage in the long run.